happen to need the headphones, if you could please get them now, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Efendim hayırlı öğleden sonraları zaman dilimlerini öğreneceğim inşallah bir gün. Çok peşrevi yapmadan panel başkanımız Cemâlnur Sargut hocamızı ve panelistlerimizi davet ediyorum. Buyurun lütfen.
Görüntüyü söyler misin? This is the last panel. Actually, saying last is the beginning of everything, and inshallah this will open up our horizons, new horizons. And as you know, this is the first of its own, this MA Thesis Symposium. May Allah make us continue this symposium for years. And I really mean that since I know my students from before about their states, I remember Kenan Rifai's words. Mürşid-i Kamil's, when they touch the stone, they can turn it into a jewel. So the touching of Mürşid-i Kamil's knowledge actually makes us progress on the path of becoming a jewel. So at least we can, inshallah, not be a slave of anything, but a slave of Allah only, and have the joy in that. So I would like to really thank all my students, and I had the great pleasure and blessing to be able to listen to most of them. The ones I couldn't listen, I will actually try to listen on the nets. I would now like to mention my Japanese students who we are really truly proud of. And Emine Yeni Terzi trained them with full responsibility, and we know very well that the Japanese students are extremely fond of Emine Yeni Terzi and her teachings. So may they come again and continue their education, inshallah. Makoto will present a very significant topic to us, especially in Sufi literature, Islamic Sufism, life and death as metaphor in the divine unity. And Kie will be talking about transmission of a Sufi thought from Rūmī to Sultan Walad. So, as you know, we have these two Japanese students of ours. How to be able to see how they actually focused on Ottoman Sufi, and the beautiful conduct and the good morals on them shaped through these studies is obviously observed. So we have American professor and her students coming from the chair in US. So it has been such a big, great pleasure for us. So this symposium taught us so many things. This symposium taught us how our students can teach us something. So Esin will be talking about the place of tasawwuf in her life, and her presentation is on architecture and a query into the reflection of Sufi teachings to religious structures. She will be talking about the effect of tasawwuf on architectural structures. And I'm extremely delighted and excited to be able to hear from Murathan, who will be talking about his grandfather, Hazreti Uftade. May Allah make us really grasp. So I will give the floor first to Makoto, life and death as metaphor in the divine unity.
So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. In the beginning of my presentation, I would like to express my gratitude to Cemâlnur Hoca, our chair, and Elif Hoca, and Emine Hoca, and Can Güzel Hoca, and lastly, Deniz Matel Hanim, who helped my Turkish translation in my slide. In Islamic mysticism called Sufism, there are various metaphors and images which mystics use as the narration of the divine unity. Such a framework of the narrative is a device to express the transcendent, although they know it is an ineffable experience. Life and death in mysticism imply a symbolic framework to narrate the divine unity for Sufis, whereas it may be an analytic framework for researchers. The statement, die before you die, mutu, Qiblah, and mutu, is a hadith which indicates the goal for Sufis in this world. The meaning of this hadith is that a Sufi should die in God spiritually before his physical life ends. Thus, in one sense, the divine unity may be equal to the condition of death. He or she restores his or her life after God separates him or her from God. As Nicholson points out, intellect and love constitute a metaphor of expressing the divine unification. Such a life and death is one of the frameworks for narrating the divine unity. Abu Qasim al-Qushairi was a Sufi as well as an Ash'ari theologian. While Qushairi as a theologian tries to understand God through speculation, he as a Sufi reaches God through the divine unification. His work entitled The Commentary of the Most Beautiful Names of God, Sharh Asma Allah al-Husna, is located in the unique position in the history of Sufism or Islamic mysticism. Tradition in which they write commentaries to the divine names was mainly transmitted in the field of Islamic theology, Ilm al-Kalam. This is because the main purpose of Islamic theology is to argue about God, although theologians certainly notice the absolute gaps or differences between God and human beings, and the impossibility of understanding God with human reason fully. In spite of the fact that a lot of intellects and thinkers add commentaries to the name of God, Qushairi's discussion of the divine names is argued from his theological perspectives as well as his mystical ones. Moreover, it is noteworthy that the commentary of Qushairi is prior to that of Abu Hamid al-Ghazali. On the basis of a hadith that God has 99 names, Qashqai raises 95 divine names in his commentary book. As far as the divine names are chosen from the Quran, the commentary of the divine names may represent a kind of interpretation of the Quran. Concerning the divine names related to life and death, there are the names of the alive, the giver of life, and the giver of death. In regard to the name of the giver of life and the giver of death, which is al-Muhyi and Mumit in Arabic, Qashqai discusses them in his theological and mystical aspect. By criticizing Mu'tazili theological school, he argued the long understanding of the both divine names, the giver of life and giver of death. Some theologians in Mu'tazili school have an idea that life is conditioned by existing of physical structure and moisture. It means that they ignore, Mu'tazili scholars ignore such various components of life as soul, which is exhaled by God. Moreover, Qashqai quotes a famous fable based on the Quran in regard to the discussion between Ibrahim and the tyrant Namrud. Oh, here, yes. When Ibrahim said, "My Lord is the one who gives life and death," Namrud replied to him by saying, "I give life and death." What Namrud demonstrates Ibrahim is to release a prisoner from jail and kill him. In other words, he regards releasing someone as giving life and taking off someone's life as giving death. Concerning life and death in this fable, Qashqai says, "The giver of life and the giver of death are the creator of their death and life. It is the attribute of the eternal." As above quoted statement implies, Qashqai demonstrates that Namrud can never stand at the same position as God. According to Qashqai, the expression of giving life is defined as creating life. The expression of giving death is defined as creating death. Concerning the point that God gives life and death to each of human beings, Qashqai mentioned life and death in the context of the divine experiences, referring to people whose life and death intertwine each other, that is Sufis. He develops his spiritual commentary of the divine names based on his Sufi background. For example, Qashqai expresses a situation of one's closeness to God. They say the real al-haq makes one who is close to him live, and makes one who turns away from him die, and annihilates him. He makes one who is close to him live, and annihilates one who hides him. Some of them recite, "I had been dead. When I remembered you, I am alive. How long did I live under you, and how long did I die?" We can say that this quoted passage contains the key terms of Sufism. The term annihilate, afana, which is derived from the same roots of fana, meaning annihilation, and the term hide, gayyaba, which is derived from the same roots of gaib, meaning unseen, the unseen or invisible. A self who is dead can be alive when he or she remembers or mentions God. Whenever one remembers God, one unites with him. When one annihilates in God, oneself is dead and lives in God. Being different from the meaning of life and death in ordinary language, the meaning of life and death in this context is uniquely used in order to express one's unification with God. They said, "One who makes himself annihilate in God is alive, even if he perishes. One whose life is only for temporal interest is dead, even if he is alive." They recited, "He is not one who is dead. He takes rest in God through death. Death is nothing but death of lives." As this quoted passage points out, Kshairi uses a framework of life and death based on two divine names when he explains that oneself melts into God. On the other hand, one who enjoys life for one's secular interest dies despite one exists in this world. On the other hand, one who dies in God can exist in God spiritually, although one does not have life physically. In this time, the term death implies a symbol of annihilation of the self, whereas the term life does a symbol of the unification with God while living in Him. One dies by being given death from God and lives in Him by giving life from Him. Kshairi's argument on life and death as a metaphor of the mystical experience is found in his Lataif al-Isharat. The English title is Subtleties of Signs, his commentary on the Quran. In his commentary on the verses demonstrating life and death, he metaphorically categorizes life and death into some dimensions. He demonstrates its literal meaning and spiritual one. When one investigates their inner aspects deeply, one repeats the experience of life and death, explaining their meanings with other Sufi terminologies. Concerning a verse of the Quran which is related to life and death, Kshairi introduces 4 interpretations of this verse. Their 4 interpretations are ordered from literal understanding to spiritual one. Since he does not mention which interpretation is his preferable one, it seems that he accepts multi-layer interpretation of the sacred text. Let me explain ordinary verse of the Quran which says about life and death. How can you disbelieve in Allah when you are lifeless and He brought you to life? Then He will cause you to die. Then He will bring you back to life, and then to Him you will be returned. This original interpretation of the verse focuses on life and death of a physical body. Intriguingly, in the Quran, this verse says that a human individual passes by 2 lives and 2 deaths. The first interpretation, which Kshairi picks up, is literal commentary to each syllable of the verse. However, the second interpretation develops its spiritual understanding of the verse. It is said that you are lifeless because you do not know me, and He brought you to life through you know me. Then He will cause you to die through your witnessing God. Then He will bring you back to life if through God removes you from you. And then to Him you will be returned it through describing the wisdom of divine law in accordance with the work of the real. In the second interpretation, it is possible to say that this interpretation implies spiritual ladder with which one's soul climbs up. The first death represents a condition that an ordinary one does not know about God. In the first life, however, one wakes up to the new life. In other words, he regards knowing what one knows God as what one is giving life from God. Moreover, the second death occurs not by physical death, but by one's witnessing God. Due to the glory of God, one melts and dies in God. It means that the second life is brought from the divine unification. Concerning the second life, one lives in God when God removes oneself. In spite of ordinary experience that one is removed oneself, one exists in the condition that he keeps the wisdom of the divine law. Moreover, Kshairi argues in regards to the third interpretation by using the term fana, which means annihilation, and the term Bakar, which means a condition, continuance in God. According to Shari, the first death is identified with condition that soul continues to be in its low level. In the first life, God brings life to human beings by annihilating the soul. Oneself in the second death is removed from oneself when God witnesses one. In the second life, oneself thus lives in God with keeping the high degree of one's soul. A spiritual seeker is getting close to God by elevating the ladder of life and death alternatively. In the first interpretation, life and death is not mentioned as a pair of mutual correspondence. Rather, Shari discusses about life alone with the term Fana and Bakar in the unity with God, although it is certainly the first interpretation of the verse of the Quran within the framework of life and death. It is said that the various situations are laid on them. Thus, neither continuous life nor perfect annihilation, Fana, is vanished. They say that this is the true life, so that we explained about them spiritual wayfarer. God controlled them and annihilate them. When they reach annihilation, God makes them stand and make them continue in God. They are eternally between negation and affirmation, between annihilation and continuance, and awareness and elimination. In the first interpretation, some claim that the situation that neither life nor death continues is the real life. A Sufi as a spiritual wayfarer is always stood in unstable condition about which one does not know whether it is neither life nor death. In this point, it is possible to say that true life is life as well as death. At the same time, the true life is neither life nor death. Moreover, we can say that one dies in love of God and live in love of God. God puts a spiritual wayfarer on such an ambiguous situation without stopping one. Ontologically, one stands in the middle between negation and affirmation, and between annihilation and continuance. Thus, one who reaches the real life is located in Ismuth, which is known as Barzakh in Ibn Arabi's thought. At the end of my presentation, I would like to finish my discussion by quoting Masnavi. Jalaluddin Rumi expresses the circle of life and death in the universe. I passed away as a mineral and became a plant. I passed away as a plant and rose an animal. I died as an animal and was human. Why should I fear? When was I less by dying? The prose which I have just quoted suggested that all the creatures of God unite together under the reality of God. Such an idea may represent an idea of transmigration, life and death for spiritual wayfarers intertwined together. In the sense of that such a circle never ceases, one may say that they, Sufis, are beyond life and death. Thanks so much.
İslam'ın ölmeden önce ölme fikrini ne kadar güzel.
This was a very clear expression of dying before death idea of Islam. I have come across this in Surah Mulk, and in Surah Mulk, God says, I will first kill you and then revive you. We assume it is the opposite. We think we are first alive and then taken the life, but it is the opposite. When we come here, we are the dead ones. Maybe we are alive in form, but spiritually we are dead. Thanks to a murshid, we can arise to the level of death before dying. And then, like Yunus Emre, he says that it is only the animal bodies, the heart and the soul is never to die. So actually the death is not what we think, and then we can understand the meaning of the verses saying the sun will arise from the west. The sun in our body downs in our form and shape. We cannot understand and see the meaning of God. Whenever we manage to rise to the level of dying before death, and then we will witness or understand the meaning of sun rising from the west. Jesus said, whoever has not died or revived twice will not be entering the heavenly gates. I would like to thank you so much. Also, I want to say a poem from our Hoca.
We have drunken the drink from the beloveds, and we have distinguished from the interior. We have distinguished the interior from the superstition. Thank you so much. That was a wonderful study. Now let's pass on to the second one. Our beloved daughter Esin will be talking about the relationship between Sufism and architectural structures.
Herkesi saygıyla.
I greet everyone with respect and thank God for being here. I will start my presentation from a sentence of Samiha Ayverdi's book, and he says, rationalism is an unhealthy structure which separates human and faith and breaks them and makes two friends enemies. Today I aim to tell you about these two separated friends and how can we make them to befriend each other. And in that pursuit, our instrument is a building and a door. Why is this a door? As a rationalist, Esin, and as a person who has gone to school like that for many years, I have gone to all the doors in Anatolia, and I would like to choose the one that most fits my aim, but this time, thank God, it didn't work that way. The door has come to me. In the coming slides, as you shall be seeing, thank God it has come to me. It was the door of the hypothesis. Our hypothesis is this: what is hard for the perfected man, for insan kamil, and that gate is the same for this building. So I won't give into detailed explanations in constraints of time, but when we look at it from the four perceptions, I can't get into more details.
So in Sivas Divriği, the great mosque's door is a door of heart. This is what we have hypothesized. So after a very long journey, I would not like to now present you a very brief excerpt from it. If the great masters allow me and give me the permission, it will become a thesis. So since we are in an institute, we need to have a methodology, of course. And our methodology is the elements of tasawwuf, for example, zikir, tawhid, and divine names. But we will also have a look at the historical and period, during the periods, and timely interpretation will also be included. So many people said so many things. For example, the architect Mimar Kuman Hoca also focused on this. But since such an institute exists, we should be able to actually we haven't yet confronted a kind of a study that would combine these two issues. So this door has been actually analyzed through Selçuk motifs. Evliya Çelebi said for this door that the tongues will be shortened and the pens are broken. So we looked at the masters who actually have been to Sivas. Why is Divriği that significant? How can our sources actually take us to what we need to know? So we actually followed the clues and the scent of all the evidences. So as you know very well that we don't have very much evidences here. I would like to actually refer to my Mahmut Erol Hoca. He would actually always tell in his lessons that there are the originals and the ones who commentate. So we know it from Ibn Arabi's works, and there are people who are really originals, they are hidden, and there are people who want to make the commentaries. When I look at the Selçuks, I see that Selçuks are actually the Selçuk's original are the ones who make the commentary of the Ottoman architecture. So when you actually combine all these data together, then it takes you to your hypothesis. Why there are three parts of this door? Why is there an outward going design? Why inside is only geometric? So I mean, one wouldn't be able to explain the inner meanings of this just by the artistry, by the carpent skills. I would like to add a very few knowledge. The slides are so intense, but I won't be reading them, don't worry. Our students generally have started to take pictures of slides, and then we forget why we took the picture of the slide. So I just wanted to contextualize it, so that's why I'm going to go over them very quickly. So when we look at the identity, we're talking about the külliye. There is a mosque, there is a türbe, there is a tomb, there is a darushifa. So from the Selçuks, it was built by Ahmet Shah. You know, Erk could also be the wife, and the darushifa, the place where people were cured, were made by the wife, and the designer comes from Ahlat, the most important, and it's in the 13th century, the time it finished. So I wouldn't want to bore you by telling you the Selçuk history, telling you about the history, but Juliana, in her opening speech, she said we need to look at what tasawwuf is not, rather than looking what tasawwuf is. So I'm actually saying what I think about Selçuk is actually a uniting elixir. It's a uniting elixir, and the Rooms, the Armenians, the Syrianis, the Arabs, with the conquests, we have the lands, and all the dervishes from here to there, from there to here. There is a cultural mosaic which is incredible. And I'm not actually looking at it only from an architectural context. There is one Erk, because nothing or nobody within such a mixture or a chaos fight with each other. They're all united. There is such a gathering of unity and union. So what is this unifying elixir? What is there behind this elixir? So it's undoubtedly, it is the sheikhs of the dervishes that have been matured in the common fire. And one of the very important pieces of information is the politics being eliminated. And the administrators, like Selçuk Sultans Alaaddin Keykubat, says that if the universe, if you deny that a universe is embedded in one human body, then they have no connection whatsoever with Allah. So this is, of course, our religious understanding in terms of deeds and faith. I know that I'm talking from a very different essence, not the form, because we're talking about it's on the platform of form. So it's not actually confirming by our tongue, it is confirming by our deeds and faith. So when we look at the historical period of this era, there is ashk in politics, there is aşk in Sufi, but especially for Sivas, if we have on the left-hand side, we have the people who are related to Sivas, a great potential of humanity, Persian origin, Arab origin, ulemas, tradesmen, and scientists. So a very high intellectual level of knowledge. So Darul Ala is what Sivas is called. It means the exalted place. Suhreverdi, Bahrettin Veled from the era have lived there, but one name we need to trace is Necmettin Razinaya, because we think that we may actually catch some evidences from his text if we can have an access to it. There are also ulemas peculiar to Ahlat. Our designer is also from Ahlat, so what kind of tekke is there? What kind of an understanding of wisdom is there in Ahlat? Especially the scholars in fiqh, which is very underlined and emphasized. I would like to follow that person as well. So the relationship with this door is to be able to find out the spiritual designer of this door. So one cannot actually deny the scent of Ibn Arabi, because from the second time he came from Aleppo, we know that he was in Konya, but he also was in Sivas too. So the moment, at the time that the door was built, and the movements of Ibn Arabi, so it's actually make us feel that he may be present, he may have been present there. Thank God that this door came to me, because the top point of science and aşk made that door manifest. And when it's actually published, or sorry, finished, then the Memluk Divriği occupation occurred. So actually it closed an era and opened an era as well, this door. So there's also another important point. Think of a masterpiece built in Divriği, but there is on the door a Selçuk Sultan is being referred to from Konya. There at that time there were other Mengücük state being present there. So why Konya? Why in Divriği? So in Divriği, Mengücük state in Sivas was actually over, and then it continued to Divriği, and then the sources actually relate their presence to Konya somehow. So let me start after summarizing to talk about the instruments. Thank God in the symposium we have Cemâlnur Hocas and her students' symbolic understanding in the design helps us a lot, because whatever the symbolic understanding has been derived from Islamic art. I would also like to go back to the architect of the door, and let me close the era. Ahlat artists, just by coincidence, have generally produced either in Divriği or in Konya. So in Ahlat there is a institution called Fityam, like Ahilik. We know that the culture beyond these institutions the outcomes are the works of tasawwuf. So this happens for the first time in Ahlat as well. The Ahlat masons are extremely well known and important. We don't know for sure yet how exactly they were being fed, but I think some evidences are coming out, as you can imagine. So symbolism is not only showing us which factors in religion and which factors in architecture we use. So each symbol can be actually a subject for thesis or a presentation. So when we actually enter the spaces of ancient divinity, what are one of the reasons for there are two polar dialectics. So because sometimes you cannot carry both in one form together. Sometimes one form is consistent, one is temporary. Zikir, prayer, and patience should definitely be reflected on the architectural design. So when you see the repetition of the motifs, they are not actually randomly designed. There is a rhythm. The rhythm belongs to the time, not belonging to the space. So we see it in Mukarnaks as well. So Tevhid, ilahi, divine unity, everything comes from a circle. So think of a mason. There is just one ruler,
Özü birdir ve bu anlamda
one instrument, and you actually make that circle. So you actually, it's extremely sacred art to be able to do these only with these compass. Ibn Arabi says square is reflected to everything rather than essence, but the circular patterns actually represent divinity. So think that you enter the mosque from the gate, and when you are connected from the building to the sky, you see these mukarnas because it's a barzakh place, it's an isthmus place, so you should see that geometric design because it's a transitional kind of area from the square to the circle. Muhammadi Nur is inevitable, especially inside the building. I will focus on it in the inner design. In the spaces of divinity, of course, light is inevitable. So where is reflected show us how stone can be transformed. So let's now have a look at this door. The door, as you can see, the building is completely four quadrangle, 3 doors. We have this Qiblah door as well, which we want to focus on. So think of a mosque that has got on the eastern side a very big long door. So probably the designer thinks that the people should be gathered there on the eastern side, but on the Qiblah side we have this door and we don't see the building right now. All the other spaces are mute. So when we have this completely stoned wall, which seems to be mute, I think this is I see this as the horizontal history. I see this like our dead body in the universe of witnessing. So I think this shows divinity. So this seems to be just present there for the sake of being there, but it's not actually like that. So when we go in, we see, deriving from the door of heart, you go into there and the axe takes you directly to mihrab. And since the other massive building is blind, completely dark, so in that journey, Seyr-i Sülük, there is this Muhammadi Nur, which is reflected on so the Muhammadi Nur is actually reflected with a cone. So you come from the universe of witnessing and there is the second cone. So there are 2 cones. One is inside the divine area and the second one is inside the authentic real life space. So, and this light is not blind. So it's actually, the plan actually really confirms that it's the door of heart. So this sentence actually explains this beautiful ornament that you can see here. So in Divriği, the artist who actually
bir ruh sahibi olduğuna inanmak yanlış olmaz. Kapıyı özetlemek mümkün. Çok azıcık sadece
who carves this stone like a lacework should be definitely sacred. So you can see the lacework there, the ornaments. So it is this symbol of tree, which is a manifest of the divine secrets. As you know, trees are so much mentioned in the Quran, and with the reference to the Quranic verses could be another subject of an article. So you see that horizontal yellow line. Under that there are two figures, and one of the figures is the figure of the infernal part, and there you have the tree, and the tree starts to climb up. The boiler pot, from the boiler pot it goes up. So it is, I think, can be resembled to the wayfarer who goes up onto his own seyri sülük, up on the levels, and then reaches the lotus at the top, and then comes back to the right hand side, which is the sun sign. Why does it start with the sun disk? Because sun, the nefs, who considers itself as a divine being, is what actually we start first, but then we should get rid of it. So you now go out on your journey, you set on your journey, but you can't reach lotus immediately. There are 3 more different discs, sun discs. So these show us that the mujahede, the struggle with your nefs, goes on, and the exams would never end. So when you look at the carvings on the 3rd dimension, as you go towards the lotus, the subjects get deeper and deeper. So the carving gets even deeper, because probably the exams are more challenging there as well. There are 3 steps wide, 3 sun discs. I think that's very important. If the masters unveil the secret, we can get the inspiration and explain. Inside these, in between these discs, we have this trees full of leaves. What a coincidence that the tree has got 7 leaves. So, of course, tasawwuf people would know the value of number 3, 7 layers of nefs, 3 stages of creation. So this cannot be a mere coincidence, and I hope everybody would share the same thing for me, with me. So I'm not actually talking about referring to the sources here. This is just what I feel. Another subject, which is the portal of 3, Kun Feyokun, why 3 in this portal? You know, in the interface universes and the outer face universes, in between there are motives, but inside, when we have the makam of Allah there, but there are no overlappings or discretion in between the inside and the outside. When you are inside, there are
Yani altıgen kurstaki
hexagon inside. Now maybe perhaps we can not know what hexagon means, but inshallah, if we can have travel in the universe of witnessing, we may be revealed the meaning and of hexagon. Why inside interior part is talking about makam of Allah? Because normally we don't have those thrown stones with duality, but there are duality, and the motives are over exceeding the keystones. So we have come to a door. How happy we are if it's opened, but we can still lie before it if it's not opened. Thank you very much.
Sevgili kızım, acaba biliyor musun, biz Peygamber gecesinde ödül olarak bu kapıyı veriyoruz. Ve
so in our Prophets commemoration game, we actually give a award of this door. So it's called the Dost Award. So what we have done has now been confirmed by this presentation. So I wouldn't be able to actually say anything about architecture, but now I'm very happy to see that people who are experts in their own fields can actually direct themselves towards Allah with their own profession through the help of Sufism. I'm so happy. Let me...
Düşman ayağı basmayan 3 şehir var.
So there is Sivas, Konya, and Malatya. So these 3 cities show us that when an insan kamil steps on the lands of these cities, the enemies cannot step. In those 3s there were no wars. So if actually the spirit can step on our body, so no animalistic desires, neither animalistic desires nor shaitan can actually press on into our bodies. Now the 3rd speaker is Kie. What a wonderful topic, hocam, isn't it? The transmission of a Sufi thought from Rūmī to Sultan Walad will be explained to us by a Japanese student of ours.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kie Inoue. I'm a student of the Graduate School of the University of Tokyo. And today's my topic is about an ideal relationship between the Sufi master and his disciples. And I focus on the text of Rūmī and his son, Sultan Walad. From the beginning of the history of Sufism, the relationship between the master and the disciple has been regarded as one of its basic elements. Although Sufism started as an expression of personal inner faith, practitioners often sought an experienced master for direct divine experiences. With changes in social situations, the master-disciple relationship inevitably transformed, especially around the 12th and 13th centuries, since Sufi orders gained official populations and developed into highly systematic organizations during this period. In this research, I would like to examine an example of this change from the text of Rūmī's Fihi Ma Fihi and Sultan Walad's Ma'arif. It is said that Rūmī's son Sultan Walad followed and spread his father's mystical thought and founded the very base of the Mevlevi order. However, there was a process of selection and re-elaboration of his father's thought in the current of organization of Sufism. Accordingly, we could see the real demands of this period's organized Sufism. First, I give an overview of some representative theories of the relationships among prophets and saints in classical Sufism, because changes in the roles and positions of saints had important influence on the meaning of the Sufi master. One of the characteristic points of the theory of saints in classical Sufism is the emphasis on the clear distinction between prophets and saints. Almost all representative classical Sufism manuals written prior to the 12th century, such as Al-Qushayri's Risala and Al-Hujwiri's Kashful Mahjub, insist that saints are placed saints are placed in lower stations than prophets, since saints should follow a prophet existence. However, from the 13th century, some Sufis have stressed. Okay, thank you. However, From the 13th century, some Sufis have stressed succession between prophet and saints instead. For example, Ruzvihan Bakli Shirazi states, in the midst of the divine wisdom, sainthood and prophethood would become twins, and he stresses the sameness of sainthood and prophethood. According to his theory, the boundary between prophets and saints is very obscure because he regards saints as successors of prophets. Indeed, he explains that the missions and tasks given by God to prophets are succeeded by saints. According to Ruzvihan, some saints reaching the utmost level could receive a message from God and understand it as successor of prophets. If perfect saints could inform ordinary people of the divine message, there are apparently no distinctions between saints and prophets. This idea that saints are successors of prophets is elaborated by other Sufis. For example, Ibn Arabi develops this idea and explains that saints have existed in all ages, and each saint acquires knowledge from a prophet as a heritage by means of obedience to the method of prophets. Ruzvihan and Ibn Arabi place prophets and saints in the same class and avoid stressing a distinction between them. And this thought is also reflected in Rūmī's text. He usually mentions prophets and saints as a pair of categories. For example, he says, the shield of God, that means saints, will exist and stand firm until the day of resurrection. It will remain age after age, epoch after epoch, sometimes in the form of prophets, sometimes in the form of saints. According to Rūmī, the most important role of prophets and saints is to reveal the distinction between virtue and vice, showing their pureness. They do not lead creatures to God's path actively. However, nearness to saints would prove nearness with God. This nearness to saints is expressed by Rūmī with the word sympathy as a sharer of the whole. When someone meets a saint and feels sympathetic toward him, the attraction to each other is like a part and a whole. Rūmī indicates that without mutual sympathy, we cannot see saints and reach the path to God. Therefore, for the correct faith, we should discover saints who provoke sympathy and then ask him for instruction. Obviously, the encounter of Rūmī and Shams Tabrizi is an example of the mutual attraction between the trainer saint and the disciple with special discernment. It is said that once Rūmī met his ideal trainer Shams, he was absorbed in communicating with his master. Indeed, Rūmī explains that the ideal relationship between master and disciple is absolute fascination with the master. He says, I often see a disciple gives of his own substance for the sake of the master's form. Thus, Rūmī stresses the need for love between master and disciple. He explains that the disciple should devote himself for the master's form. And in another story, Rūmī appreciates the affectionate attitudes of his disciple Akmaluddin. He said, Akmaluddin said, I love my master Rūmī and I aspire to meet him. I think about his image and the other world is not my concern. Then Rūmī replied, if you don't think about the other world or God, all of it is included in your life. So then, for Rūmī, the ideal relationship between master and disciple is to yearn for the master like a lover longs for his beloved. Now I will examine the view of Sultan Walad. His opinion would be characterized by the parallel use of the saint and master. For example, he said, a saint and master are successors of prophets. Sultan Walad categorizes prophets, saints, and masters in the same role as successors of God. Thus, in Sultan Walad's text, masters have strong authority equal to that of saints and prophets. This lineage of God's successors is inherited by the master's disciple and continues forever. According to Sultan Walad, this continuance of the chain of God's chosen people is maintained like graft. He explains that the master's inner quality is inherited and the disciple's inner quality will become the same as his master's. He said, the soul of the disciple also grows up and develops by the grace of the master's knowledge and wisdom. This kind of people who is grown up with master's milk is called disciple. And since he gets his power from his master and is grown up by his master, he is in the growth and development. Finally, his state becomes the same as the master's. Sultan Walad indicates that a disciple grows up by the wisdom and knowledge of his master, learning the inner quality of his master. Consequently, the master's inner quality is inherited in the disciple's soul, and the disciple's inner quality becomes the same as his master's. For the ideal succession of the inner quality of the master to the disciple, the bringing up of disciples by masters is necessarily important. Sultan Walad stresses the need of the master's help for the maturity of the disciple. And for this maturity of the disciple, Sultan Walad recommends talking with the master or learning from him. He said, in short, the disciple knows himself completely by the grace of the words of his master. Thus, Sultan Walad views sainthood as more or less a priori quality of the master, so the rank of master becomes as high as the saints. He indicates that the establishment of the inviolable saintly position of master during his lifetime means a lot to him. In addition, he stresses the relationship between disciple and master and the process of growth. He regards cherishing his disciple as the duty of the master. As a conclusion, I can point out some important differences between the opinion of Rūmī and his son Sultan Walad. First, Rūmī expects a more intense relationship between master and disciple than his son does. He regards his master as his lover or intimate friend, not caring so much about the hierarchy between master and disciple. However, Sultan Walad develops a more instructive view regarding the ideal relationship between master and disciple. He explains the role of the master to cherish his disciple and help him reach the correct path to God. Therefore, the disciple is not pressured to love his master passionately, but to listen to his master and learn from him. Naturally, some hierarchic positioning is preferable between master and disciple. He does not describe this relationship in terms of love or intimate friendship. These differences between Sultan Walad and Rūmī are based on not only their theoretical tendency, but also social situation. In short, the tendency to institutionalize Sufism accelerated in Sultan Walad's lifetime, and the relationship between master and disciple was changing. As the Sufi orders acquired some permanency as the center of the community, the importance of lineage of orders also expanded. Regarding instruction, Sultan Walad's method is more suitable for the order. Sultan Walad's notion is basically based on Rūmī's idea. However, though his master and Father Rūmī prefers the passionate description of the divine experience, Sultan Walad's theory minimizes the passionate description of it. That is to say, his own theory is more practical for administration of the order. And finally, I'd like to express my thanks to all members of the Üsküdar University, especially Cemâlnur Hoca and Elif Hoca and Cengizer Hoca. Your passion is always encouraged me and inspired me. So for me, you are real idea masters. Thank you.
Efendim, bu güzel konuşma, harikulade konuşma aslında bize şunu öğretiyor ki
it tells us that some masters, some mürşidi kamils have told the same notions in a more structured way, and some took more the path of love and they didn't refrain. Every sentence that Rūmī said was mentioned in an artistic package, so nobody condemned him. But Sultan Walad was more of an administrator in a more structured framework, and that is why he had chosen this way. So from that perspective, every mürşidi kamil has a different interpretation of the same meaning. The meaning never changes, but the interpretations and the discourse might change. Whenever Mevlana said Shams, it was nothing but saying God. But by respect, he just said it in the form of his master's name. So there is nobody other than God, and what emerges from it is the hakikat-i Muhammadi, the Muhammadian truth. And that is the truth of Muhammad, that's the truth of God, that reflects in the names of God, divine names of God. And just like Mevlana said, we are the mothers who are bursting out with milk, and every mother's milk is different in its way of protecting her children from diseases and infections in her own unique way. That's only so much of difference among the different milks of different mothers, in the sense that they all serve the same purpose, and the only beloved is God, and that is through the murshids that we get to know this truth. Now we shall have another Shar'i approach. One of the biggest sultans, starting his way, will be told us by his very grandson.
Merhaba to everyone. I greet each and every one of you. With your permission, I'm starting. I would like to start by thanking all my teachers who have really shown great efforts for me. Those who are here or not, especially to Emine Hoca. I will be reading some poetry, so thank you very much. My topic is the Tevhid understanding of Hazreti Üftade, its visibility and its experience. I would like to say that it's a very important study for me. At the beginning of the symposium, we actually found out that it has got a theoretical aspect, but it also has got an experiential side as well. So when I saw the study, I really focused on the experience, and I learned so many things, and I did experience some things myself as well. So let me now start. Üftade Hazretleri is such a great master, is such a vast ocean. It's somehow, it's very challenging to be able to explain him. So when we want to explain the Tevhid understanding, we should actually take a look at the Divan, Üftade Divan. So how can his poetry actually lead us to this understanding? It's a very deep topic, so I hope I will be able to do it. In my study, I had the chance of being able to examine those works, and they really contributed a lot to me. So I also was able to understand Üftade's Mürşit and Mürit relationship in Mahmut Hüdayi's book. So that's also a blessing, again, an insight for me. And thank you so much, Cemâlnur, because you had actually organized an organization and conference on Üftade, so I also benefit from its recordings. So on the left-hand side, it's Nezihe Arazız Anadolu Evliyaları, Anatolian Friends of God. So I introduced myself to it. I got to know that, and we have actually this book. We had this book in our library, and thank God I was able to read it now. First, let me start with his life and his character and his understanding of Jalwet and unity, Jalwa and unity, and then I will try to explain some of his poetry, inshallah. So he's one of the climax masters of Anatolian saints of Allah, friends of Allah. So not only in the period that he lived, but also on the 21st century, he actually lived the concept of Tevhid at a very high level. So he was born in Bursa in 1490, and he lost his father at a very young age. And then after his sister and his mother passed away, he was very lonely. So in Bursa, he passed away in 1580. He worked as an imam, as an orator in so many different mosques in Konya. With Emir Sultan's revelation, I should say, he was assigned to be an imam in Emir Sultan Mosque. But for the service he had in Ulu Cami and in Doğan Bey mosques, he got some money, and because of the money in his dream, he was actually made to fall off from his station, and that's why he used the nickname Üftade in his poetry. Paul Bonifant actually translated his poetry into French with the English name of The Nightingale in the Garden of Lover. And in his library, we know that he had books of Imam Ghazali, Ibn Arabi, Konevi, and we know from his masterpiece, or one of his masterpieces, Vakıa, that he is also able to give treatments and cure due to his knowledge in medicine. So he was known to be a very dignified, serene, trustable, always smiling person, and he was educated by Bayram Veli's caliph's Şeyh Hızır Dede, and he knew Persian very well. He would cite from Mesnevi, and he would also take spiritual training from Ibn al-Arabi in an Uwaisi fashion. So he actually was one of the peers of Jalwetiye because he's a murid. He's a sheikh of Aziz Mahmud Hüdayi. So Jalwet means actually unity. So when you are in Jalwe, you are inside people. So you are with people. But in Halwe, in seclusion, you actually seclude yourself from the beings of from all the beings of this world, and you try to make connectionship with Allah, connect to Allah. But in Jalwe, once you actually are equipped with all these divine attributes, then you can go back from seclusion and be a part of the people. In his work Vaka, if you are attained, then you should actually go to people, and then you should actually be able to give guidance to people. So when you are attained, it's not a block for you to go back to this world and guide. So you should attain God, the truth, but you should go back to people and train others. So in his poetry, the concept of Tawhid is actually having all these differences, gathering them into one. So it is Allah's oneness in all the creatures. So such an understanding is also carried to 20th century by Kenan Rifai, as shown before, showing all the different and short and long fingers coming together, showing beauty. So when you say La ilaha illallah, you actually call for the unity of Allah. So whatever makes you you is actually always reciting La ilaha illallah. So such a zikr makes you put this into action in a state form. And in Vaka, Hazreti Uftade says, La ilaha illallah is actually the door of the truth of Tawhid. If you have this truth, if you live this truth, then you unify yourself with each and everything in this world. So, O Divine, give our hearts polish with your zikr, and we should be able to see the beauty of the beloved in unity. Your zikr should be our guide, and may Allah make us attain like all the other attained people in zikr. And our soul is full of zikr, and it gives us life. And if we can rescue from the annihilation, it's only the permanence, the beka, with your zikr. Of course, I actually made some shortenings in the poetry. They are not originally like that. So zikr actually gives polish to your heart. And fena and beka, annihilation, which is nothingness, and beka, permanence, which means to exist, is predominant. And Uftade says, you should, with zikr, you should be able to transform from the state of fena to beka. So in beka, you actually see the names of Allah in all the beings. And in fena, you get rid of your nefs, your animalistic desires. In the understanding of oneness of being, there is a great good morals inside, ascetic understanding, and fear from being apart from Allah. And there is this wisdom, the truth. He actually is away from Shatia. So he So in these lines, in his poetry, Uftade Hazretleri wanted to give us some news about the truth. So vücut here means wahdet, oneness. So according to Uftade, if you want to attain oneness, then you should be able to get rid of your feelings, your attributes that are related to your flesh side, to your beşer side. So when you annihilate yourself, then you get connected to Hak. So all these truths are actually written in a good in an edep which is away from Şatiya. So Uftade Hazretleri sees Tevhid with an emphasis of the inner edep. Outer edep is to be able to obey the Shari rules, the Islamic rules. For example, this poetry on Dost Cemali, pray 5 times, don't look at winter or summer, so that you can actually realize your praying and you wish for the beauty of your Hak. Do fast and clean your body, and you should actually prostrate before God so that you can see, if you wish to see the beauty of Hak. Give your alms. Watch for the different states of yourself. Do good deeds if you wish to see the beauty of Hak. So the beauty of Hak, if you want to see the beauty of Hak, you should actually obeying the Shari law. Because here we have the mention of Kelime-i Tevhid, prayer, fast, giving alms and going on pilgrimage. So his understanding of Sunnah is together with an understanding of Shari laws. So in his understanding of Tawhid, there is a parallelism of the understanding of Jalwa. Because if you want to attain unity, the best way is zikr. Zikr is to be able to say La ilaha illallah with your state and with your heart, to say there is nothing but Allah, but you really do put this into practice. So the oneness of being is also seen in his poetry in a very meticulous way, without going out of the Shari rules. And he always emphasized that reaching unity requires obeying Shari laws. Uftade, the nickname that he uses, and the understanding of the Tawhid he mentions in his poetry, shows today's children, today's people of 21st century, and guides us on how we can find peace. So it's not in seclusion, but it's to be together with people and to see Allah's manifestation in everyone. Once you get rid of your own self and reach Fena, then you should actually permanently be together with people, as in permanence in Baki, and be with other people. You should actually be able to see the bad in the good and the beauty in unity. So not only just by verbs, but verbally, but also with your state, you should be able to show how you can discern, how you understand, how you apply Tawhid. So to be peaceful means to be before Allah, and the best tool to take us there is adab, is the good morals. My teacher Kenan Arifai also, with great love and pleasure, follows Uftade's path and loves Uftade's path. I would like to very briefly talk about Uftade in a different way. One of our son was got the initiation to Kenan Arifai And he was actually, since Kenan and Rifai told us all the time that if you go to Bursa, you should actually be visiting Uftade. So our son went to Bursa, visited Uftade, and asked this question, whose child are you? Whose son are you? And our son said, I am Kenan Rifai's son. And then the caretaker talked about how great Kenan Rifai is, how beautiful Cavetiye Tarika is. And our son actually really liked his way of welcoming him. And the next day, he actually went to the caretaker with a box of chestnut sweet, but this time there was another person in the tomb. And the caretaker said, there is no other caretakers. So, and the caretaker says, that's only me. But then our son asked, who was the person who came from downstairs? And the caretaker said, there is no one, only Uftade tomb is there. So it would probably be a vision of his. So when the great masters actually pass away, when they come out of their the sheath of their swords, then they are very influential and effective in our lives. So I would like to remind ourselves of this fact once again, that we are also trying to give our lessons in great unity, like all the professors loving each other, respecting each other, trying to explain the same meaning in various different forms, and has this pleasurable effect on our students and our professors' own way of understanding Tawhid, not with an attitude of I am teaching, but I'm also learning kind of an approach. Teach is one of the most important issues. So to be able to a student at this institute is a very important. So if you ask for becoming a student, then you become a talebe, because you ask for it. So that's a very important blessing. Atif Halil Hoca comes from Canada. After Nazlı's presentation, he says to Nazlı, I learned something new from you about Ibn Arabi. So this is such a great insight. So our students are actually teachers for the future. So you should be able to tell your grandfather to us, because he's very important for this world. Thank you very much.
Biz de çok teşekkür ediyoruz fotoğraf için.
İnşallah. Maşallah. Maşallah.
Efendim çok şükür, çok şükür değil gerçi yani.
Makoto, Kie, we're expecting them. Maika, buraya biraz daha sandalye alalım arkadaşlar. Maika, hayır, Michael Arnold.
Sizler İngilizce konuşan da bari.
Have you seen Michael? Yes, please, Maika. And then Makoto and Kie, please. They knew that it's going to happen. Teşekkür. Lütfen ya. You can take it over there. Yep. That's good. Elbette. Makoto, please. Can I have Kie, please? Kie. Kie. Oraya iki tane daha sandalye alabilir miyiz arkadaşlar? Elvida Hanım, şöyle. Esin Hocam siz oraya buyurun, Elvida'yı öyle. Tamam. Bir tane de Anika, şuraya da Anika'yı alalım. Teşekkürler. Üsküdar Üniversitesi Tasavvuf Araştırmaları Enstitüsü. Gülfem hocamızı da oraya alalım lütfen. Öğrencileri, herkes içeride mi?
Onların zaten...
Üsküdar Üniversitesi Tasavvuf öğrencileri. Tamam. Yes. Coming. Come on, Kotoko. It's gonna come. It's gonna come. Hocam müsaade eder misiniz? Açıklayayım durumu. Efendim, şimdi öncelikle
First of all, I would like to thank to each and every one for their participation. This will be an evaluation session, if you will. Our hojas and our students will make an evaluation of this symposium, and we have students of our institute and guests coming from different parts of the world, so we kindly ask you use the microphone. You can go off the stage if you like, using those stairs, and we kindly ask you to only maybe say a couple of things, couple of maybe sentences. These may be in form of opinions or recommendations. So the floor is yours.
In Turkey and in the world, the first time ever, MA Sufi Studies Student Symposium has been realized, and we as teachers benefited a lot. The same goes for students. So in my life for 65 years, my dream has come true today. And I wasn't actually the one who have imagined this. this imagination was a product of my teacher Kenan Arifai's seeing the future, because he said Tasawwuf will one day be taught in universities. So today we are experiencing it. And there is something that I noticed as well. Our students have been transformed into living Sufis. So not only with their own way of talking, the way they get dressed, their attitudes, their behavior is an example of good morals. They all set very good examples. Of course, I know their past. I know what they were occupied with. So I really am thankful to my great Rabb, Lord, and my beloved teacher Kenan Arifai for making this possible. I am sure, and I strongly believe that he is actually spiritually present here with us, and all the other peers as well, I believe. I would like to give the floor one of our most beloved professors of our institute, Emine Hoca. The floor is yours. Estağfurullah. First of all, I'd like to state that Cemâlnur Hoca stated very rightfully that this symposium is the first, in two ways actually, both in content, because it's on mere tasawwuf, and secondly, it is in Turkey, it is first because it's for the MA students only, the presenters. Our institute was established 4 years ago, but our real work started 2 years ago. So at the end of the second year, it is God's blessing to be able to organize such a conference. We don't see it as a matter of pride. We actually see it as an inaya, as a blessing, as a grace of God, because we are now fully aware of the fact that we have more load on our shoulders now, and that we need to work much harder now. And graduate students, the investments on graduate student is always invaluable, and we should always be focusing on that. And in the future, as professors of the institute, we are aiming at organizing special sessions for graduate and postgraduate students, focusing on thesis, so that people can actually share ideas together to focus on your thesis. And that may also be the first. We have strong faith in the fact that such an attempt will actually enhance the quality of the thesis content and methodology. And may Allah, inshallah, give us the opportunity to be able to do that. I'm first of all extremely thankful to Cenab-ı Hak for giving us this task. And secondly, the founder of this institute, dear beloved Cemâlnur Hoca, as well as the dean of the university, who always have supported us, and the director of our institute, Elif Hoca, who is always supporting us. And my colleagues, my friends, each one of you really made us extremely delighted. There is no such thing like
her biriniz konunuzda çok
experience. You were all extremely competent in what you have presented. May Allah be content with you. I really thank you. And our guests, it's been an honor for us, your presence, and may Allah continue these symposiums in the future.
Well, first of all, I want to thank Cemâlnur Hoca again for being the force behind this conference coming together. I just mentioned to my colleague, Juliana, that many of us have seen memes of images of Islamic conferences, and they're all men, no women. and I look out at the faces and the panel, and it's a corrective, a much needed corrective. And so I think that deserves recognition and applause. I'm quite involved in the Muslim community in my own city. I give sermons at the local mosque, and it really troubles me to see that it's unfortunately a very male-dominated mosque structure, a very male-dominant mosque community, even though it's North America, Canada. And I always tell the board and the people in charge that you're not providing a space for young women. Young women, they love Islam, like Muslim women. Young women, they love Islam. But they don't have a space in the communities. And even when I teach courses in Islam, this year I'm teaching a course in classical Islamic thought. I have 30 students in the class. 24 of those students are girls. 6 of those students are boys and are men, and women and men. And I'm reminded of a saying of Anne-Marie Schimmel. Her name was brought up. A paper, lovely paper was presented on her. And she said something to the effect that women have always had a great love of religion, but religion has always not reciprocated that sentiment. So I think it's really important that we have conferences like this, and we continue to have conferences like this, and that efforts be made in this direction in the broader Islamic world. I mean, this initiative has taken place in Turkey, but I'm not really sure if the same initiatives are taking place in other parts of the Islamic world. So we can hope and pray that this trend continues. Now, as far as the conference itself, I'll be very brief since I have 30 seconds left. I was very impressed by the international breadth of the conference. We had young students from Japan, from the United States, from Lebanon, from Germany. And this is not usually common for a graduate conference. Usually graduate conferences tend to be very localized. And so it was really interesting to see different methodological orientations being brought to the conference, and I think it served to really enrich the experience for everyone. And the final point I want to make is that I was also impressed by the interdisciplinary approach of the conference. I teach in Canada, and the scene in religious studies is very secular. And there's a real insistence on separating one's own belief from what one studies. And although the scientific method can be quite rigorous in the analysis of religion, sometimes there's just a lot of heart lacking. You know, there's the beef isn't there, the substance isn't there, but there's a lot of analytic analysis. And then when you go to the religious circles, there's a lot of heart, love of God, love of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, but there isn't the academic rigor you find. But here we have a coming together of both something of the academic rigor of the social sciences, but also the heart, love of God. There were many moments in the presentations where I was deeply touched. I was about to cry. And I think many of us felt that way. So that was also something I wanted to bring to your attention. Thank you.
Hocam müsaadenizle ben burada durayım. Şimdi
So with your permission, let me stand here. Do you have a microphone, my friends? Can we have it? Can we give it to Veliullah Bey, please?
It is very interesting and a great pleasure for me to attend this conference. And I would like to thank all the organizers, especially Dr. Zulfaqar, for kindly inviting me to this important event. Thank you very much.
Vedide Hanım'a verebilir misiniz?
I would like to mention two things. Kenan Rifai says, if you do something with love, the efficacy of it will be that strong. And what I saw, what I observed in that institute is very much that. What I saw from our professors, our students, all of them put their nefs behind themselves and tried to disseminate this science with the love of God. And let me also say, here we have listened to and read classics of great Sufis, and all of them said about themselves, and in this era we maybe have the name of Sufism, but not Sufism itself to the full extent. And I hope the effect of Sufism will spread all across the world. And in our age, Sufism will have its name and its self present everywhere. And we have guests sitting in the back row. As we have the audio and visual record, could you please stand up? I say Sufism is the kitchen of Islamic religion. And 3-4 years ago, we set up a fire here and cook. And all the people who will be trained here will be serving to the whole world. We have distinguished people coming from different fields. I would like to thank to Cemâlnur Hoca and all those who helped us, all the directors of or the administrators of these institutions. May Allah bless you all for giving us this opportunity. In Turkey and in the world, this institute is the first of its kind, and our Hoja also addressed to that fact. And this symposium has proved it possible for us to see that we will have tasawwuf survive and live on. In all institutes, something rational is done, and we do something also with our hearts here, and all of our colleagues have shown that, and I believe a spirit has been blown into Sufism yet again, and I would like to say that I'm grateful to those who allowed us that. And Dr. Asuman Kulaksuz is with us here, and we are very happy to have her here with us.
İşim yok ama
I actually have no place here, but Edip is higher than comment, so that's why I'm here. If there is ilim with no faith, then it can take you to blasphemy. And if knowledge is actually without, if iman is actually without ilim, then it would also limit you. So here now we have both faith and we have both knowledge, and it will inshallah enlighten first of all us and then all of us around us, all people around us. Merhaba to you all. I'm extremely nervous, so please forgive me. In this symposium, this symposium made me think of two topics. One of them is, for the last 10 years, there is this international symposium. There are these international symposiums we participate, we watch, and here the experts actually examined their own topics in their own fields, like in archaeology. They dig in the stones, the jewels, the diamonds. So I actually saw some of my friends really digging and excavating like in archaeological things, and I'm planning to watch their presentations again. But on the other hand, there were some students who actually brought their own life experience to tasawwuf in their own fields. So they combined the Sufi knowledge with their own profession, and we had numerous such presentations, and especially Esin Hoca's presentation was extremely impressive. So, Turkish Higher Education Council, the officer who came from YÖK and talked about tasawwuf, and he combined her field of she combined her field of medicine with tasawwuf. That was also amazing. So I'm just thinking perhaps tasawwuf will be disseminating from deep down on the ground to the surface level now. So perhaps the time has come. I have no suspicion. I think the place is here for it to come out. The second point is that our rector said on the first day that the MA students generally read and then they leave the school and they don't actually come to school very frequently. They attend their courses, but no, we actually didn't have the same experience. We attend our courses, we want to attend the courses again and again the coming semester, and we want to stay on campus, and we have beautiful connections here among our friends as well as with the professors. And I'm hoping that in 5 or 6 years to come, the Sufi students will actually occupy this building and there will be no other students left in this building. So that's what I remember. One day, academies will one day become modern tekkes. Perhaps it will be like that. May we be permanent members of this building. I really feel that Nevzat Hoca perhaps wasn't thinking of such great expansion, but if he had seen it, I think he would open the door again, perhaps twice to us. I would like to thank my teacher once again and add that when I first met my teacher, I was a Buddhist. So she actually took me from such a state and transformed me, and I have now become someone talking about Allah and tasawwuf. Oh, please don't go away, Osman abla. We need you. Kie, can you please say something?
First of all, I really enjoyed this fruitful symposium, and I thank you all the members of University of Üsküdar University and all members of Kerim Foundation. Thank you.
Denizhan.
Merhaba.
Hello. I would like to share one thing. Material and meaning are like the two wings of a bird, and with only one bird, with one wing, you can fly anywhere. And at this institute, we are learning to fly somewhere with both of our wings. We, all of us, have careers in different fields, have experience in different fields, and we are trying to strengthen our spiritual side, and hopefully we will be flying higher. Kotoko?
Biraz heyecanlanıyorum ama
Hello, I am a little bit excited. We are coming from Far East, and we brought all the greetings from our country, and we would like to express our gratitudes and respect. As my friend said before, we are working in different fields. We have those coming from different professions, but we have come together at the same platform and benefited from each other. And Emine Hoca and Cangüzer Hoca, Cemâlnur Hoca, Emine Hoca, thanks to them, in Japan we have opened into a new area for us and enjoyed Sufism a lot, and I would like to thank you all very much. In the last presentation, as Hazreti Uftade stated, it is like stepping out of halvet, being open to public. So in such a place, such a venue, we have had the chance to be together, and hopefully we will come together again and again, and I would like to thank you all very much. Esin and Tümer, during this 3-day symposium, we, under the umbrella of Academy, have had the chance to experience love. It's new to me because so far I have always maybe delivered lectures in Academy with the methods used, but inshallah Allah will have us spread it, and this have touched us in one way or another, and it contributed me a lot, because here during these 3 days I have happened to get to know different resources of the field of the literature, and not easy years are ahead of us, and this thing can be done in Academy with heart, with feelings, and hopefully we will be the members of this community who will achieve so. Alhamdulillah. And Tümer, before you, please stand up. Yes, you're all grateful. We are all grateful. We know that now we can have maybe different opinions, different perspectives of evaluation. Don't we have any mistakes, or haven't we had any shortcomings, or how are we going to take things forward? Maybe you should leave the floor to Kerim, if you say so. Okay. Let me first say what I was intending to say, and maybe come up with some criticism as you demanded. I feel that everyone is seeking after something, and they're seeking after love. And the fact that love here is with science is crucial. And only here I have had the chance to see that science grows love bigger. We have listened to many presentations. I couldn't listen to some of them as there was a meeting next door as well. But generally speaking, I can say that I have happened to know different people, and in the presentations we have had the chance to know about some other people new to us, but we also need to develop a methodology, place things onto a system. So rather than a descriptive maybe presentation or introducing someone, maybe we should be analyzing certain figures, as Can Hoca asked me to maybe offer some criticism. But the main purpose of this session is exactly that. So thank you very much indeed. And Banu is there. Banu, if you wish, you can stand or sit, however you like. Okay. As my Hoja said yesterday, Tasawwuf, Sufism is a path for searching Allah, and if it is there only for science, it will be something like he said this and the other one said that, and that's why it need to be mixed with love. And two wings of the bird, one wing can be in academy and science, and the other wing in love. And our purpose is to reach out to Allah, and as Mevlana stated, our purpose should be eating the walnut within the shell. And we are waiting for Didem, Saadet, Nülgün, Mustafa, Mithat, and all of them. If they are here, we would like to have them on the stage. Here on this stage, with the presence of Cemâlnur Hoca and all the other Hojas, it's hard for me to believe. I can only thank, actually I can thank enough. It's a grace for us. It's like a dream. Hopefully we won't wake up from that dream throughout our lives. And I also would like to state that we had the chance to look into the same truth from different perspectives, from different windows, and this is like watching Wahdat in Kesrek, and may Allah help us comprehend it. And everyone says that this conference has proved itself to be successful, and we believed we have had the faith into that symposium thanks to our Hoja, and hopefully we will have the next ones come. Hello everyone, I also would like to thank for that beautiful symposium. It was the first of its kind for me too, in Istanbul, in Üsküdar district, my favorite district of Istanbul, and Sufism, my favorite field of study. Being able to participate to such a symposium and having had the chance to share and learn about love and science was very pleasing. And the MA students, I have had the chance to meet them and see in what fields they show interest, because Tasawwuf, Sufism is a very comprehensive field, and I have had the chance to see that there are interdisciplinary studies available. And maybe in the next symposiums we will delve into further details. Maybe something haven't caught the attention of all of us, but we have seen that all the students have a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of will in themselves, and each and every one of them, when they were making their presentations, were happy, and they made their presentations also to make the audience happy, but on the other hand, they were fully aware of the importance of scientific work, and hopefully MA or maybe PhD and maybe even higher level symposiums will follow, and new students will be educated, and I hope we will have newcomers. And maybe one more thing I should add, this group, the faults, no, I didn't ask you to mention about our faults, but for academic purposes. Well, I can say that this group, all of our friends, maybe we could have come together before the symposium, could have met one another before the symposium, and have had maybe better communication. And that's only that's only about it. Maybe in the next ones it could be better. And also to the other people, we can share our presentations with the other people. Okay, to Saadet Hoca. As an academic, at the age of 40, I was a physics teacher. I quit it. I was seeking after truth all my life, throughout my life. Indeed, the people are coming from physics also seek after truth. And I believe the ones in the field of physics are the ones closest to the truth. And I graduated from Moscow University, and I had professors there who were seeking after truth. And Einstein also says something like that. They are looking for truth, not for money, not for fame, but they are really going after truth in the real sense of things. So as Mahmut Hoca says, going deep down, going into the archaeology of things, this goes the same for the people working in the field of physics, but I couldn't find the truth there, and that's why I quit it. I worked for many years, but I fell in love with my professor, my Hoca, and I made my way here, and I can stay here as long as you want me, and it doesn't matter if I don't do anything academically. I can be with you forever. And let me add one more thing. Academy-wise, I believe we are marching towards a very positive destination. Yes, all the presentations are different from one another. Not all of them are at the same level, but we could see a real evolving, a good positive improvement, and hopefully we will also develop a methodology. Yes, everyone may look at the issue from different perspectives, but there is a method needed also. A theoretical fundamental structure, I believe, will also be established. Thank you. Didem, Yeşim, and others. Didem, excuse us, could you please stand up so that we can introduce you to the whole room? Didem Bayer is one of our interpreters who interpreted throughout this three-day symposium, and is also one of our students at our institute. We wholeheartedly thank her. I did it with two colleagues of mine, and I would like to thank to everyone who never left me alone from Turkat. They were my friends, dear to heart, and I also would like to thank to Aylin a lot, specifically thank her. Without her, I couldn't do it at all. And my colleague Emrah also accompanied me throughout the conference, and I would like to thank him as well. It's better if I sit down, and today it has been a very interesting experience for me with this group for more than 10 years, maybe 12 or 13 years. Thanks to God, I have had a chance to be together, but for the first time with another title, with the title of being a student of the Institute. I've been here, and I feel myself very lucky about that. For years, maybe I was around it, I was in the periphery of it, but I have had a chance to come to walk towards the core, the center of it, and also academically, and my husband also started an MA program. It is an online program. It is about his field of expertise, and he spent a couple of months on it. But then I started hearing some sound from the machine. The machine was operating, but the noise coming out of it was a little bit stronger. And then he said, I will quit that program. But then I will ask you something, he said. He said, you work all day and you go across the bridge, you learn a new alphabet, you study, you read a lot. but how come can you do it? He asked. Because everyone says me, after this age, what are you going to be? Will you be a teacher of Sufism? Do you have a grudge against yourself, as some people say? But I said, I wish that I wouldn't love it so much that I couldn't do it. But after this age, maybe so far I was saying, what is an MA degree, what is a PhD? After this age, what are people going after? What is it that they are chasing after? But Allah tested me very well, and hopefully I will be passing that test. And I would like to thank to everyone who helped me through that journey. Hello again. I have a little story that I can't forget about myself. I finished university, completed my studies, and I left the building and said no one can make me go through that door again after getting my diploma. But then 10 years later, I met such a force, such a power, that it made me go through many doors, not only a door of a building or a school. As my friend Didem stated, with a lot of work, while being busy with a lot of work, I started studying here, and I would like to thank to the administrators of this institute. They made a lot. We worked day and night maybe, but still we made it. If I couldn't have come to this symposium, I would have been really, really upset. But I am now very happy and secondly, many people at this school come from different backgrounds of expertise. We have read a lot about Sufism, but there's also a test, an exam for you to pass. So we had the sweat, we have had the blood, we have had the tears. So someone like me, who said I will never go through the door of a school again, ended up studying and reading at school, at work, and without losing any enthusiasm, I do so. And we have been reaping the fruits of that as a result, as an outcome of the hard work that many people put into it. And I believe that this is also a start, and it will grow bigger and bigger, and we will feel ourselves again lucky as it grows. I would like to once again thank, I'm sorry just to thank, but thank to everyone. But let's not misunderstand. I didn't say do not thank, but I said if there is anything, let us know what we should change when we organize it for the next year. For example, what subjects can we hear, or a sort of feedback. So you should feed us back so that we can grow bigger. Maybe everyone is a little bit drunk now as a result of all of it, and maybe we should calm down a while and maybe think thoroughly afterwards. Since my birth, I have had a chance to grow up in such an atmosphere, thank God, and I feel still, I feel myself still someone new to the field, but as a result of all these great works, we will finish. Hello everyone, I would like to express myself briefly. Kenan Refai talks about Irshad and brought in an Irshad using a new methodology. Maybe not everyone is accepting that, but this is the fact. And he had a will, and in the 20th century he said it will continue with the academies. I couldn't fully comprehend it in the beginning. Yes, in academy science is spread it, but what about Irshad? It wasn't so clear in my mind, and they thankfully invited me here, maybe so that I could witness it. So there's this different power that helps us do so. So I can't provide any feedback, unfortunately. I believe there is a method which is existent in other departments that is not existent in other departments. Without putting ourself into the foreground, we are able to provide science, and hopefully we will have more of it to come. And I was going to leave the floor to Micah, but maybe you can take the mic. Maybe Micah can take the floor. So I feel myself in an ocean with a lot of peace, a lot of gratefulness, a lot of grace, an ocean of that. Due to respect, just out of respect, I said, please, if you have any feedbacks or criticism, let us know. So if you want to thank, only thank so.
And taking your advice.
Okay.
I'd like to start by thanking everyone for the opportunity, for the Kareem Vakfa, for everyone in attendance, for everyone who organized, because it was a very helpful and interesting weekend. And I benefited greatly from hearing different interdisciplinary backgrounds speaking about this topic. That being said, I think it's a very unique space to be able to bring scholarship and community together, to have them speak back and forth to each other. And I think that's very needed. In addition to that, Can Güzel Hoca mentioned countless times the need to think about methodology. And I think one benefit of this going forward is to think about how scholarship and community can also participate in developing methodology. And one thing that's missing definitely in the American Academy is translations. And that's one thing I could encourage the Institute to do, is provide more translations of particular individuals who are discussed here, who may be unknown to scholars of Sufism who focus on different periods. So that would be my one piece of advice. And again, thank you very much for hosting us and for attending. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, could you please pass the mic to Nazlı? And then may I ask also those who spoke can step down, and Yekta, now it's Nilgün Hanım yok, Mustafa, Mithat Beyler.
All of us here witness a historic event. For years, history is written, and we are only maybe witnessing. But first of all, I would like to thank to the organizers of this symposium, and to those who contributed a lot, worked hard. I would like to specifically thank to Elif Hoca, who worked day and night without losing patience. On behalf of my friends, I would like to thank, and I also would like to thank to my colleagues and also my hojas. Endless thanks. This is an outcome of a vision. My hoja years ago said maybe we should establish an academy of Sufism. It was like a dream back then, but it took a very short period of time for that dream to come true. Our Prophet once someone said to him, anything you want happens immediately. All of your dreams come true immediately. Why is that? He was asked, and he replied, because I do whatever he asks from me. And this is an institute of Allah. Hopefully we will be the ones who will be experiencing that morals, who will be those who do what he asks us from us to do. And only this way this science can live on. Otherwise it will remain only as a shell. And we have, of course, new wishes. Hopefully we will also put all of those wishes into reality, and maybe we will have many other things come to our way that we can't at this very moment even dream of. Kerim Bey, so we are waiting for your criticism. Bring it on. As far as I could see, many people played to the audience with love, with poetry, with poems, with all, but I'm not happy about it at all. And we, yes, I have listened to a lot of presentations, insightful presentations. And in one presentation only, people felt like going after Kerim. But I would suggest that you... I will speak in English now.
People from Japan, we have Tehran, Lebanon, a lot of Afghanistan, and Germany. We are really grateful you guys coming all the way from the other part of the world. What it reminds me, this whole situation reminds me of the Sultan Ottomans. The first Osman, you guys may not know, well, he's the founder of Ottomans. He had a dream, and the dream happened, you guys may not know the story, but it is a very important story for us. He's actually a Sufi that you may not know. He has a teacher. He had to visit his teacher and had to leave, had to stay at night. But because of his adab, he had there was a Quran existence in the room, so he was not able to sleep. Well, actually, he was not able to lay down. So he was standing, and then he fell asleep. And during his sleep, he had a dream that out of his stomach there was an ivy coming out. The ivy actually went around the whole world. He conquered 3 continents and stuff. So 2 things about this story is, 1, adab. The second is ivy. Ivy is actually the meaning of ivy means ishq or ashq. That's where it comes from. The word ashq comes from. And I felt like we have both ashq and adab here, and it seems like we're gonna be conquering the whole world from here. So thank you very much.
Cemâlnur, lütfen.
Teşekkür ediyorum.
For 3 terms, we have learned a lot. And of course, when our professors were teaching those to us, they opened up horizons, and on the other hand, showed us that we are in a vast ocean. And with a multidisciplinary approach, we came to your presence before you, and we tried our best to express as much as we could, and we would like to thank you all very much. And we have had guests coming from different corners of Turkey, from different parts of the world, and we had deliberations regarding our studies, and it contributed a lot to all of us.
I'm very excited. I'd like to thank all of our professors. I would like to thank Dilek for coming to Germany every week to teach to us. All of them have contributed to our studies coming to the level that we are at. Also, these presentations had been a means of our professors to give feedback to us. When we do our presentations, it helps us to clarify our thoughts, and they will help us to better fine-tune our presentations. We hope that this will be repeated every year. It will become an annual event, and for that to happen, we need Elif Hoca's leadership and vision and able guidance. We hope that she's always with us. One last thing that I want to say. For 3 days, there had been tons of presentations. The topics have been shown to us and presented to us thanks to the light of our Hoca, and if we can take one step in the path that she lighted, we would be more than happy. Honestly speaking, my friends have said everything that I planned to say, and when I was getting my presentation ready, our participants here are also our friends and family, and I want to also acknowledge the unity, the excitement. I see Pınar there, who always encouraged me, my partner. She said when she first read my presentation, she said, how much of that presentation have you internalized? How much of it has become hal? She said. And I said, Pınar, no, I know that it has not become a hal for me. And I'm in the business world, but I have so much desire for it to be internalized, she said. And I have felt the same aspiration, the same inspiration in all of the presentations of my friends. So there is this synergy that this union of ideas and emotions create. So for the future, I can say, Elif Hoca, God be content with you. We can never pay you back. She is planning it like an intricate, embellished doily, and every field might call for different types of work. On my behalf, with your feedback, I want to say this. We have had serious presentations with very strong, solid background, academic and theoretical, substantial background. On my behalf, I want to learn from the primary resources. I made myself a mental note. My personal learning is to use more of the primary resources in my future studies. There's no end to God's knowledge. It can't be classified, it can't be categorized. So there's no way or category or framework of telling God either. And if there is aşk, format can only work for so long. And with such a strong theoretical background on the table, and also having so much aşk also in the issue, I think this is a first in its field. First of all, this is my first symposium that I participated in Turkey. I participated in many symposiums abroad, but they were mostly about Middle East and Islam and other topics. This is the only specific Sufism symposium, so that was very beneficial for me. Thank you so much. It was a very interesting and useful environment. I have one thing but a criticism. Before we were up here, we tried so hard to fit into our time frame. Of course, I have so much respect to all the fields of study, but it is a very, very specific field of study. Sufism is really difficult, so 15 minutes is a very short time to tell anything about Sufism. So if you can extend the time allocated for each presenter, we would really appreciate that. And also, even though I'm quite young, I have been born and raised in a Sufi environment. The more I know Şeriat, Hakikat, Şeriat, Tarikat and Hakikat, Iman, Islam and Ihsan. Iman is the way of Tasawwuf, and in that path that leads you to God, it is pretty tough and it's very difficult to hold on to your Iman. It is like a burning piece of coal, very hard to handle, and so we have to be careful. But when everything is done with love, you can have in that order. In that ordeal, then it will be successful.
I would like to thank you for a wonderful conference and also congratulate you all actually for organizing a wonderful symposium with really diverse audience. I might have a really weird way of evaluating conferences that might be different from other people. When I look at a conference or a symposium, I look both at what I learned from all of the talks given, but also what I get from talking with the people outside in the breaks over coffee. And this has been a wonderful experience for me, what I have learned in discussions as well as in the talks. So if I might give, which is not really a criticism, but just like an idea for like going on in the future for organizing a symposium in the coming years, it would be wonderful to have more of those discussions that you have outside as well included in the symposium itself, which could be through discussion panels or workshop settings and different ways to communicate more with each other, because there's such a wealth and diversity actually in what we all come from and the different scholars from the different perspectives that we have, and it would be wonderful to tap more into that and to share it more. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anika. Wow. Could you please pass it to Murathan? Thank you.
Ben de aslında buna benzer bir şey geldi aklıma bununla ilgili. Bu
Also something similar came to my mind. There are Persian rugs with many different colors, and that beauty coming out of it. Actually, this is a bit like that. I felt the same. I think our friend Nur, Magdalena Nur, and I got the opportunity to talk in the breaks, and it is so amazing to talk with people from other cultures. We might look very similar when we stand next to each other, but we walk the same path, and I think we must be able to do that more often. Also, I want to say something on my behalf. First, if there was a pair of glasses that you put on, whatever meter that would be, we emit that thing wherever we go. We have seen it in The Peaceful Warrior in our cinematography class as well. We always thank, but also the people we work with, the families, the friends that we have need also to thank you, because they also benefit from that. And I see this place as a, I hope I'm not being mistaken, it's a Japanese style. They separate the male chicks from the female chicks. Without talking, the master does that. Separates the males from the females, the chicks, little baby chicks, and without talking, he does this for many years. I had really great friends here, and I learned a lot. We have learned a lot, and some of our professors here, I have some of them that I know since I was a kid, and I have realized how amazing mountains like the Everest they actually were. And one other thing is, our friend Özge is a good example of that. The people who work here are also working here in a way. I see them as an example and I say, can I ever imitate them at my workplace? Is it ever possible for me that I'll be working like they work here? Every friend here, Özge and others. Yes, and Hülya and you, right? So all I'm trying to say is, there's a lot actually I'd love to say, but just like my Hoca said in the opening, it's like the explosion of a volcano, eruption of a volcano, and I like analogies and depictions. I liked when she said the volcano of Islamic Sufism have erupted like a volcano, and there's no way stopping it by holding your hand on top of it. So I hope we can all cherish and enjoy this, because I think pretty much it's not actually within our control. Certain things are happening the way they are happening, and thank you so much. Eylül Hoca teaches at our institute and also is a graduate student in University of Uludağ. So she's really sacrificing so much to be here with us. Everybody told their story about their relation with the institute. When my Hoja sent me to Harvard for a graduate, and I thought I was going to be there 7-8 years and I will expand my graduate degree. I'll stay there for a long time. And she said, after 7-8 years, we'll call you back. But 2 years later, she just called me and said, okay, we opened the institute, you're coming back. So it was a very sudden shock for me. What can I tell you about? A couple of items. Thematically, I would suggest we could start with the Sufi classics. What is tasawwuf and what is not? The first tasawwuf classics tell us a lot about that. And I was going to say, let the intention be good first. Let the niyat be with love, ashq. And then you have the junoon, you have the funun, and you have the sukoon in tasawwuf. And I think our researchers also have the junoon that we come in encounter with the text. And then I hope we'll have the funun, and then I hope we finally reach the sukoon, God willing, inshallah. And also about the method. So let's have the nice intention. And we all study the text. When you study a Sufi, what do you study? It's not a survey. I can't have an interview with that. God bless their soul. What do? You deal with their text. So how do you read the text? You need to know the language. You gotta know the language, the Arabic, the Persian, and that's why we are here. It's not only through the translated texts into Turkish. We need to know the language, the specific qualities of the language, and we also need to know the symbolic language that the Sufis use, and also there are going to be the outcomes of the research. There's a compilation of research here, and please correct me, we need to come to conclusions without really arrogant, big sentences. Our friend Ebru's presentation was, I think, the stellar presentation of the symposium. It stated the problems and it brought up ideas, solution-focused options. And I want to say something. Sometimes our students come, my students from back when I was a theology teacher in high schools, and some of them come back to me after years and years, pretty exhausted by the routine of life, burnout. And then my friend one day asked, who are these kids? Why do they keep coming at you and asking you? And then my friend said, no, that is actually not good, because this is a reductionist approach to spirituality, to divinity, because we just make it a tiny dose, a daily fix of divinity to make them go and do their job in the daily world. We're not here only to tame the Nefes horse. We are here to rise above taming that nefs, so that we can actually acquire the knowledge. Because in the modern theory, the knowledge is reduced to something as a tool, as a material thing, and let God allow us to know ourselves. And then thank God for having an institute that has enabled us to do that. Thank you so much to everyone.
Aliye Hanım. Aliye Hanım'a.
Buyurun efendim. Aliye. Aliye oldu değil mi? Aliye oldu.
Hem değerli
esteemed audience, I greet you all again. During those 3 days, I want to share a couple of anecdotes from it reminded me of the words of Meşkure Sargut. All the sciences are a step to the ilm of Tevhid. All their goal is to conceive La ilahe illallah. For 3 days I have witnessed the manifestation of that quote of Miss Sargut, and we have learned so much valuable knowledge from our professors, and I want and wish that these symposiums will become multiple and regular, and I'd like to thank to Ms. Cemâlnur Hoca and other Hocas.
Aliyeciğim, Yekta'ya verir misin?
Efendim 3 gündür bana sabrediyorsunuz.
You're bearing with me for 3 days. Thank you so much and forgive me if I've done anything wrong and said something wrong. Yekta, thank you so much for your service. Please come to the core of the issue. I have graduated from political science and my first master's degree was also on the same discipline. And when you hear political science, everybody says, keep away from political science, get out of political science. And I says, I have no interest or correlation with international relations. And everybody thinks that I am coming from an area that is very, very unrelated with tasawwuf. But for a horizon, as a horizon for me personally, I hope that there's something that also includes politics, maybe including ethics in politics. That might be the path that I might choose for myself in the future. Dilek is, there are people who know and who do not know her story. Let me first tell, she's an anesthesiologist, she's a medical doctor. She has gone to Germany and she has served on that front, and then she studied theology, and then she had her doctorate degree about Sufism and women. What she's teaching here, the scientific methods, the knowledge of methodology and its effect and contribution is visible in all the presentations here. So personally, I am thankful to her for enabling our students writing articles. I am so grateful for being here, being with all of our friends and listening to them. And also, I hope that we will have other reasons, means and ways of gathering and being together. It's so nice to do things together. Emine Hoca said these students are not rookies, they're not newbies, and it is thanks to the sohbet, the discussions, the discourse that our Cemâlnur Hoca has done for years. She has led the way. So the students here do not have just a couple of years behind them, thanks to the efforts of our Hoja in the past. There are many different types of studies, interdisciplinary examples of work, which is a sign that many different fields will come up. Like there is geology and physics, and then there is geophysics, combining them, or like biology and chemistry come together in biochemistry. Maybe this will be the case for tasawwuf, combining with other fields, and we shall be constant students, God willing. And I hope that these presentations will be published. Maybe we can have a journal, a magazine, which will regularly publish the works of our students. Then these different studies can reach everyone. And also all of our friends were very happy. We saw that they were all very happy. We always talk about the lack of heartfelt thinking, the kalbi, hearty thinking lacks, and maybe then we need to have different models for teaching from a heartfelt or hearty path.
Shoot.
Oh God. Okay. So when I was a student, I hated being the last person to say something because there's like usually nothing left to say other than what they all said. I wrote down a few things so that I wouldn't end up that way and be maybe a little bit less nervous about it as well. I do want to thank people because I think it's really important, and I have already thanked the people whose names have come up over and over again, but I also want to thank all the people behind the scenes. Everyone from the person who ordered the cookies to the ones that put this sign into this lanyard so I could wear it for 3 days. I have organized conferences from being the coffee girl to being the main organizer. Thank you all. A conference does not happen without that.
Arkada Belgin var. Sibel gözükmüyor. Ceyhun nerede? Onlar gözükmüyorlar, evet.
And I know that there are very, very many of you. Some of you didn't even have a name tag. You were just staff. So again, thank you. Nothing of this could happen without you. I want to sort of make a little snarky comment about what Professor Khalil said earlier about giving sermons in the mosque and be involved in the community. I don't give sermons in the mosque. But I want to echo, because I'm not allowed to. Yeah, I think I should too, for sure. But I want to echo the sentiment that came from, which is that this is a conference mostly by women. And I think we should just take over. I think we're very good at it. So in terms of reflections, I've had a lot. I've been involved with the idea of the symposium for a little while longer, so I had time to think about it beforehand and to observe here, to participate. And to me, there are several things that stand out. One is this is a very special project. And I mean that in a really good way. So this institute, the MA program, inshallah, a PhD program one day, are all things that are very special. There is no such thing anywhere else. That also comes both with responsibility, but it also comes with very specific challenges, because as Americans say, you're sort of making things up on the go, right? So you have to find ways to answer questions like, how are we going to teach this? What are we going to teach? Who are we reading? Who are we talking to? Not only what are our methods, but also what are our forms of expression? How do we talk about this topic, this great vast ocean of tasawwuf? And for me, as someone who comes from a very different academic background, there were moments where I felt a little lost, where there are difficulties meeting this very different approach and accessing it. There were also moments where I thought there were beautiful meeting points, and I felt sort of like I wasn't walking on the ocean, but maybe like on a tiny little boat thing on the ocean. And I think those might be conversations to continue having about where those meeting points are and whether we want to continue talking in this way. So I am grateful for the opportunity to think about that. There's more. Can there be more? Is that okay? I would echo what some people have already said about conversation. I had said on Friday in my talk that I think, for me, the academy, even the kind that I'm in, is a dialogical enterprise. And so format-wise, it might be helpful going from this breadth that this symposium represented, the really including all kinds of topics, all kinds of students, all kinds of approaches to where students respond to each other's papers, where students read each other's papers beforehand, where there is what we now call, it's very hip in our universities, what we call peer learning. Peer, the one with the 2 E's, not the other one. So to open up formats, like what Annika was saying, workshop type things where people get together, perhaps with a mentor, a faculty mentor, to talk about a set of 5 papers for 2 hours or 3 hours, and then really very lovingly but critique each other, ask more questions, deepen the arguments. I also think there's an opportunity here that sort of emerged and then went away again, and then emerged and went away again, which is that this institute is uniquely positioned to put Ottoman and Turkish Sufism on the map in Sufism studies, which is something that is very much needed. And you all have the tools, you have the language tools at your disposal. And so I would actually sort of like put that on your shoulders as a responsibility to do more, to do that, because you're uniquely positioned to do that. And I'm not only talking about texts, obviously, not surprising after all of this, but also about living Turkish Sufism, which you have here in this room, and you have it in the institute, and you have it in Istanbul, all over. It permeates everything. And that also needs to be reflected on, and needs to be studied, and needs to be introduced to the study of Sufism that is not fully aware of that. And I want to end with a garden metaphor, because I have a lovely garden back in Chapel Hill. I do, right? Yes, yes, yes. You've seen it. So garden metaphors now work for me because I know a lot about gardening. So gardens are, I don't know how much you think about gardening, but gardens are not like forests or meadows, right? Gardens are projects that need both order and growth. So a beautiful garden is in perfect balance between order and growth. You have to let nature do its thing, but you also need to tell it where to go. And you know, in gardens, there are perennials and annuals. That's sort of the main distinction, stuff that dies every year and stuff that comes back every year. And I think we all agree that Sufism, Tasawwuf, is perennial. And so I'm hoping that this symposium and the institute that made that possible, with everyone who's been involved in whatever capacity, is a scattering of seeds to grow into a beautiful garden.
Thank you very much. Apologies, I think I forgot Makoto.
Oh, yes.
Sorry, Makoto. Sorry.
Oh, I actually expected that I have to talk after Professor Julian Hammer. So, yeah. And when I was a child, I also didn't like to be the last person.
You're not the last.
Yeah, anyway.
You're not
okay,
the last,
don't
worry.
Okay. Before talking about my impression about this symposium, let me explain my personal history. Yeah, I met the professors of Üsküdar University and people in Kerim Foundation, and some of you all last year in the end of January 2016. Then until I came here, I didn't know that Can Güzel Hoca worked in Chapel Hill, where Professor Carl Ernst works there. Because my father is a good friend of Professor Carl Ernst, and And when then my father was a student of animal Shimno. He took her course. Then Professor Carl Ernst would come to Japan in May on 2016. So actually, when I attended the program bridging between far east of Asia and far east of West, I didn't expect that I think this Üsküdar University and Kerim Foundation never connect with me and like my father's good friend. So, but yesterday, last year, when I joined in the symposium held in Kyoto, I could meet with Professor Carl Ernst and other professors who are well known and in the level of prestigious level in the academic of Islamic studies. I really would like to thank the leadership of Cemâlnur Hoca and Elif Hoca and other professors in Üsküdar University. And I could, and one more thing. I have met with Professor Toshihiko Izutsu when I was a child. Because my father was introduced Professor Izutsu by Wilfred Cantwell Smith, who was a professor at Harvard. And now we can read the text written by Professor Izutsu and Animal Schimmel and some, of course, Kenan Rifai through reading text. But of course, when I joined in this conference in this weekend, I noticed that there are so many ways of reading and perspectives. And Michael talked about something, but there are some disciplinaries and perspectives for reading the text. But I think each reader has each background, and each reader tries to read the text and context. So I think by attending this conference, I could know how we can read the text, and especially I came to know the power of words. I mean, each person has enthusiasm of reading text sincerely, although the writers lived in the past.
Thank you.
Anyway.
Thank you very much. Şimdi herkes yorgun biliyorum.
I know everyone is tired, but we have a microphone over here. If there's anyone.
There's a mic on the floor. It's open. So please join us. Lütfen buyurun.
After that, when the meaning table came to my way, I have become very happy, and I would like to thank to my Hoja as a student and also as a cooker at this association, and also during Tawaf being together in Kaaba. I am very excited. I'm very happy, and after the losses following the earthquake, what made me the most excited with an ever-growing excitement and determination and an ever-growing feraset insight by putting targets ahead. Turkat with the chair of Turkat, that growth, that process, all of these showed me what can be done, what can be accomplished. As someone who witnessed those all, I am very, very excited. And the feeling that helps me speak here, the color that I see is the color of ocean in 2000. A piece of sand size event thing helped me go into that with a height ascending into the sky with greatness. He holds his both hands and showed me two flowing rivers. One is rose, one is flower, and the other one is emerald. They came together and they started to flow like gold. And this was shown to me in 2001. I had forgotten about it, but it reminded me of that when I saw this color, the establishment of the bridge. And one other thing excited me a lot, and I wondered about the meaning and the hikmat of it, and it was a black submarine of Sabancı, and a piece of sand sticks underneath it, and with that submarine, despite the fact that it was coursing fast, somehow fell off it and came up to the water surface, and on the water surface it saw a lot of little ships, and put his head up, and there was a bridge, and there was the Far East. Many people crawling with people, the Chinese. Thank you, Zümrüt. Yes, we have finished the part about the academic speeches. Now we have talked a lot, and maybe we shouldn't go further ado and leave the floor to our Hoca.
For the last two years, it's such a fortunate time to see how further our students have progressed. Now they have been working for the last 2 years, and this project of the presentation was given to them 2 months ago. And they all have their own profession, they have all their house responsibilities. So with great enthusiasm they got ready for this. So we have this common belief that when we have to actually come up with a different methodology which should be quite different from the ones we have at the current time. So it should be tasawwufi academic studies, and it should definitely be a new methodology. Now, most of my students come from extremely challenging professional environments, and when I ask them to have their master's degree, they said, we work a lot, we don't have enough time. But then now they say, once we have entered this joined this program, our business life has become more exciting. Now I advise each one of you to come to this program. Firstly, my daughter-in-law, my beloved daughter-in-law, Gamze, she's a banker, and Yeşim showed us that bankers could actually become very good academics. We have two types of people, those who study and those who support. Both should go on with success. This is my supplication. And yes, I agree, people should be communicating with each other. But they have always been in contact, but perhaps prior to the symposium, that would be better if they can get together and talk about what they will be presenting. First of all, Kenan Arifai and Samiha Ayverdi, who taught us this path. My parents, who actually taught me how to live in this world, and my sister, who has supported me all throughout my life, Dr. Asuman. Thank you so much. I would like to thank all my students. They have already exceeded me. It's a pleasure for a teacher to see that her students have exceeded herself. Like Samiha Anne says, I am not proud of my students. I am thankful to my Lord because of my students. Please on stage. Of course, there are people who served us. The ones whose names were called were actually those people who served behind the stage. I'm in the microphone.
Aylin yok, salondaydı. Demin bir görmüştüm.
Evet.
Belgincik gelsene.
Okay, everybody who has contributed, please hurry up. Everybody melted here.
Kazunori, Kie, Maika, Uwais, would you come? Alihan. Anika, come on. Sizin.
Eylül Hocam, seni ayrıca tebrik ediyorum. Biraz önceki girişiminden dolayı.
Aslı nerede?
Etkili oldu.
Go ahead. Kie, Makoto. Uwais, would you come? You really religiously attended all the sessions. Thank you. Didem nerede?
Evet.
Kimi?
Değil mi? Tam bir FETÖ.
Dahan Bey.
Fethiye.
Could you please join? Guys, you can sit down. Didem'le Emrah Bey. Didem geldi. Emrah Bey de gelebilir mi? Türkçe, İngilizceye gerek yok. İsim söylüyoruz. Buyurun. Daha Bey lütfen. Şöyle oturur musunuz? Sami, gelir misin? Yelit Hanım, sizi bekliyoruz. Murat Bey burada mı? Evet. Fahir, sen de epeyce devam ettin. Sen de gel bari. Yosun nerede? Yosun çok kıymetli hizmetler yaptı. Jale nerede? Pınar Ergenekon, Emre Ömürlü hocamız.
Emre.
Ya. Çok. Magdalena Nur. Come. Leni Nur. Zeynep hocam.
Hadi buyurun hocam.
Zeynep hocam. Zeynep Akay hocamız. Evet, Şaziye Hanım. Vedide geldi mi?
Davet edelim mi?
Bakıyorum, göremediğim. Esmeray nerede? Naz mı yapıyorsun? Koş gel. Haydi arkadaşlar, öğrenci arkadaşlar. Var, Elif'in arkasında oturan var. Zeynep Cinisli. Elif, senin arkandaki hanımefendi, gelsenize, siz de öğrencisiniz, buyurun. Nurcan Hanım mı? Ben herkesin adını bilmiyorum. Haydi. Şimdi ben can I say one thing? We received so many applications. We were able to accept only 65 of them. Sorry. Well, next time, based on team, it's gonna be less inshallah, so it would be manageable. But it shows there is a demand. Yani biz 120 tane başvuru aldık. Aralarından 65'ini seçebildik. Onun için teşekkür ederiz. Arkadaşlar gelsenize, SKS'den görevliler. Tabii. Çocuklar gelin, gençler.
Vallahi gel bir dakika, sen de konuşma. Allah rızası için gel. Sen de konuş. Hadi gel. Gel.
Asfiye gel, her sabah bana kahvaltı alsın.
Çok teşekkür ederiz efendim.
Ama böyle onlarca. Öyle. Bir şekilde çıkmış.
Çok güzel oluyor.
Çıkardınız mı? Ben de bunu arıyorum.
Gördüm ya.
Siz helal edin hocam.
Elif
Tahsin hocam. Tahsin amca. Ben Ali Mustafa'nın oğluyum. Nasıl?
Vay koçum vay be.
Kimle geldiniz?
He?
Kimle geldiniz?
Kendim geldim.
Kendiniz geldiniz, hoş geldiniz.
Vay be.